Have you ever wondered why you keep making the same choices, attracting the same situations, and getting the same results, even when you desperately want your life to change? Today, we're diving deep into something psychologists call self consistency bias, the invisible force that keeps us trapped in old patterns. But here's the hope: both cutting edge neuroscience and ancient biblical wisdom show us the same truth. Transformation is not only possible, it's your divine birthright. So if you have a desire to experience the best that life has to offer you, stay tuned because we're pulling back the curtain on this week's episode of Coach's Corner. Good evening and welcome to this week's episode of Coach's Corner. I am your host. My name is Dwayne Dwyer, go by the Mindset Coach. And as always, it is a joy to come before you on this Tuesday evening so that we can have these conversations. The goal, the desire, the intent behind each and every show is to kind of give you some more tools to put in your toolkit so that you can become the best versions of yourself. So I want to make sure that I take the time and the opportunity to thank you for joining us, because at the end of the day, you could be anyplace else, but you chose to be here with us. And I do not take that lightly. So thank you for joining us. If this is your first time, look in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, find the icon and then click on that and subscribe to the channel. Not only that, share this with somebody that you think will actually find this show beneficial. Somebody who you may feel fall into the category of the introduction that it just came. They just keep reliving the same patterns over and over and over again. They have a desire to grow, they have a desire to change, but for whatever reason, they cannot find a way to actually do that. So again, please share it on your social media platforms, share it with friends and loved ones and things of that nature. That said, listen, I hope you guys enjoyed last week's episode, and I want to kind of continue to build off of that. And that's kind of like what this show is all about. So it's all about self-consistency bias. Now, I know, because just by virtue of who we are, human nature, things of that nature, and from experience, that, we make these goals, we make these plans, these desires to be a better version of ourselves. And then sometimes we find ourselves falling short. And it's not that I don't believe that you failed. I just believe that you failed to identify the thing that, prevented you from getting to where you wanted to get to. And I think that's important. I think it's important for us to understand that you are not a failure until you completely stop doing the thing. Right now, don't take the term failure and tie it to your identity. It's just, according to that particular thing that you were doing. So I think it's important for us to understand and process and digest that. So that said, I kind of want to set the stage because I think it's important for us to understand the science behind your stuck patterns. Now, I believe holistically, when we look at life, I think principles are extremely important. And the more principles that we can tie together, the more we'll find things actually happen in our life according to what we desire and how we plan it to go. But I also think patterns are extremely important. And I think patterns reveal themselves to us so that we can learn a particular lesson. And if we fail to identify the pattern, then we fail to learn the lesson. Therefore, the pattern is going to repeat itself. So that said, it's important to understand the science behind the patterns that keep us stuck. And so that brings us to self-consistency bias. Now, again, like we said, self-consistency bias is the thing that keeps us stuck, right? And when we look at it, it is literally like an internal autopilot. We can call it our subconscious or unconscious mind, but it is an autopilot causing us to repeat 96% of our daily decisions, keeping us stuck in familiar cycles, even when we want to change. Now, I think that's alarming enough for us to consider it. Whether you're looking at your life in general, your life intertwined with somebody else's life, there are patterns that exist there. And the more we are able to identify patterns and analyze those patterns, the more we can learn about ourselves. And I think it's important, and James makes it clear, no pun intended, right? But James makes this clear. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. Now, when you really stop and think about that, that leads into the notion, and I've been saying this for quite some time, that my behavior reveals the evidence that I need for me to become a better version of myself. But again, if I fail to capture that evidence, then I don't necessarily know the things that I need to change. Now, James, or previously, we mentioned the 96%, right? And I think that's interesting because when we look at that, only 4% of our daily decisions break from those established patterns. Simple math, right? but science shows that the brain resists change by activating discomfort centers. Listen, this thing is wired for protection. That's all it is. The comfort zone to yourself, to your brain, is a matter of protection. When you start to push up against it, then it feels like it's in trouble, and then it's going to start attempting to protect itself. And by me saying itself, it's going to protect you. So now, even when you look at those things that you wanted to do, those things that you attempted to do, the things that people have introduced to you, then in the midst of listening to this particular opportunity that you can actually see as a very vivid and clear opportunity in your eyes. But then you automatically start coming up with every excuse under the sun about why you can't, whether it's finances, whether it's, you don't have enough time, you have a commitment to do this. So I got to take the kids and, all of these different things you come up with. And here's the reality of the truth. Whatever excuse I can come up with, I can actually come up with an answer to it to make it not an excuse. If I can say I can't afford to do this thing, well, really, if you see the opportunity in it, maybe the reality is that you can't afford not to. If I don't have enough time to do this thing, well, maybe it should make me look at the time and see where I am wasting time. I'm not necessarily using my time wisely. And that's an important piece. So for me, I like to analyze my life and look at certain things. And, I tend to do certain things out of habit, just like everybody else. And I'm not exempt. So when I look at specific areas of my life where I caught myself in that 96% autopilot mode, it was, I needed to be consciously aware and honest with myself. And at one time, I got into the TikTok revolution. Right now, I was a TikToker, not so much as a creator on TikTok, but an observer on TikTok. Now, that's a whole nother conversation that I can take you into, not about the TikTok, but the observer. Right. And if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. But being an observer on TikTok and looking at it, hours a day, whether it's 2 hours, whether it's 1 hour, right? It was like, this is becoming a pattern. And so I needed to change that. And going back to the observer piece, a lot of times we have to exercise what is known as metacognition. Think about what you're thinking about. And really, ideally, if we really get into what metacognition really is, it's like you taking a step back and observing yourself. It's like, have you ever walked up behind somebody and just stood there and look over their shoulders? Then they didn't even know you were there. You were just standing there looking over their shoulders. Well, imagine you doing that to yourself, right? That's really what metacognition is all about. It is you being the observer of your thoughts, being the observer of what those thoughts generate in you, and then how those thoughts generate the behavior that comes behind it. So that's what I had to do. I decided to take a step back and look at me and say, okay, why am I doing this? And what is the result that I'm getting from this? And then if the result is not desirable, if it's not to the point to where it moves the needle positively in the direction in which I want to go in life, then I needed to be consistent and I needed to be intentional about making that change. And I think when you do that in your life, you too will start seeing some things change as well. Now, do I no longer go to TikTok and observe? No, that's not true. I still go to TikTok and observe, but I am conscious about the amount of time that I dedicate to TikTok, and I think that will help you as well. So whether we're talking finances, whether we're talking TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, X, whether we're talking the news or any of those things, what is the thing that you are paying too much attention to that is distracting you from doing the things that you really want to do? And by default, you're making an excuse with reality when presenting opportunities because you're trying to preserve those times to do those things subconsciously. You don't necessarily realize that's what you're doing. But every time I say I don't have enough time, it's like me trying to protect the time that I'm doing the thing I'm doing, as opposed to going back and analyzing the time that I actually have and say, okay, I can clear this up. I can move this out the way. I can do this or whatever the case may be. But if I can do it with time, I can also do it with finances. So now let me look at what I do as far as my, outcome, my output, right? Not so much as the input, because the input in some cases, we can talk about that as well. But the input in some cases is fixed on your 9 to 5. So whatever your job gives you, that's your income. And then you got to look at your output as far as that. Now, can I do other things to increase my income? Absolutely. Right. But a lot of times we don't want to do that because it takes time. Okay. But when I look at my outcome, look at the things that I'm spending my resources on. Is this thing moving the needle positively in the direction that I want to go? Yes or no? If the answer is no, get rid of it. Do something to get rid of it. Right? I get it. We got Netflix, we got Hulu, we got Peacock, we got Paramount Plus, we got Apple TV, we got Apple Music, we got all of these different things, right? But when I look at those things, I have to get to the point that I recognize that I am doing a lot of outcome, even if it's just $100 a month. What if in my mind I devoted $100 to something that was more so of like feeding my most valuable resource? And I say that again, the most valuable investment that you will ever make in your life is an investment on me. But what would happen if I actually make it a habit to invest in me every month? Just think about that. Now, pretty much what I just told you, but this is for you. I want you to like decide, determine, do the observation of yourself. What's one pattern in your life that that you keep repeating despite knowing it doesn't serve you? And then if you want, by all means, put it in the comment section. I would love to see it. And I think it's important to do that as well. Not that I'm forcing anybody to do it, but it helps us to understand that we have different experiences, but our experiences are somehow interconnected. So we do a lot of the same things, right? And when we get to the point of being completely honest and transparent, then what we'll find is that, yeah, you do it too. Okay, cool. Well, let's partner together so that we can understand some ways to overcome that. Um, so that's important to understand. But then I also think it's important to realize that those things come from a particular location. Now, what do I mean when I say that? Well, if, and I'm just going to use me for an example, if I don't go to the club anymore, and I say it that way because at one point in time I did. I used to go out. I was young, I was vibrant, I used to hang out, all that other great stuff. Right. Not that I'm not vibrant now. Don't judge me just because I'm older. Um, but at some point I stopped. And it wasn't a hard stop. It was just a decision. And once I made that decision, I just automatically stopped going to the clubs. I didn't sit around the house and languish. I didn't break out into a cold sweat or hives or anything of that nature. But as I became more aware of who I was, right? Not who I was when I was going to the club, but who I am at this particular point in time. And recognizing that going to the club, like going back to what we just previously talked about, going to the club did not move the needle positively in the direction that I wanted to go. So once I had this better understanding of my identity, then I realized that the previous version of myself was keeping me trapped. And that trapped version of myself was in prison. And here's the funny part about it. The bars were invisible and there was no guard there. I'll say it again. The bars were invisible and there was no guard there holding me there. I created it for myself. It's almost like if you've seen it's like an analogy that is done to where a baby elephant is tied to a stake and the rope is about yay long. And so the baby elephant grows up its entire life recognizing that this is as much rope as I get. And then as the elephant becomes older and stronger and bigger and all of that stuff, and you can look at the elephant and clearly see that that elephant will snatch that stake out the ground if they just decided to do so. But they won't go any further. And that's exactly what we're talking about when we're talking about these particular things. So ideally, we come to the realization that we unconsciously seek out situations and feedbacks that confirm our existence or self-concept, even if it's negative, because consistency feels safer than change. So it's like I'll surround myself with the people that tells me the things that I want to hear. I surround myself in environments that reveal to me the things that I want to see. Why? Well, we call that, consistency. It's like if you and I having a discussion, you have your point of view and I have my point of view, and then we go research the same document to get a better understanding of the differing points of views. 9 times out of 10, you're going to go and look at that document to confirm what you're already thinking, as opposed to allow that document to shape what you're thinking. That's called confirmation bias. We do it all the time. We do it in the Bible. We do it in the news. We do it in politics. We do it in a relationship. It's like there is no end to it. And so I think if we get to the point of recognizing that if we stop going to confirm what we thought and we actually go get the relevant information along the lines within the scope of the conversation that's actually being had, then we can realize that, hey, what I'm thinking can actually change. What I'm thinking can actually grow. so can my self concept of myself, so can my identity. And I think that's important. And Carol Dweck makes a very profound statement here. Repeated behaviors aligned with a new image rewire the brain, making identity shift not just possible, but neurologically inevitable. Let that sink in for a second. All you have to do is make a decision to do something different. Make that something different a habit, and then that alters who and how you see yourself. So at any given point in time, you can change. You can make the decision to change, or you can continue to stay in the space and stay in that invisible cage that you created for yourself because you like that version of you. But that version of me existed 10, 20 years ago. Like, it's like me going home per se. I say it that way. Where I grew up at, things of that nature. It's like, sure, I run into old friends and things of that nature. Um, and it's almost like some of them, not all of them, right? It's almost like some of them expect me to still be the same person I was 30, 40 years ago. That is like an impossibility, especially for me, because, and I'm not saying that I'm better than anybody else. I think everybody can do this if you decide to. It doesn't have to be a special quality about you. Just decide. But for me, I am extremely intentional about it because in my mind, like how can I sit behind this microphone and talk to you if I'm not practicing what I'm preaching? And I think that's important. I would be a person of low integrity if I did anything other than that. So look at the things that you want to change. Just create one new habit. That's all it takes. One new habit, and then make that change. People with fixed concepts have 30% lower success rates in change programs than those who embrace identity flexibility. Let that sit in for a second. It's like you'll make a decision, maybe out of peer pressure, right? You'll make a decision, participate in the program. Let's just say, I'll talk about my upcoming webinar this April 11th. And if you haven't signed up for it yet, by all means, you should, because I think you'll find that it's going to be an awesome feat. I give you access to it here shortly. But let's just say, I call it for shorts, it's Pain's Portal to Purpose, right? Let's just say you signed up for that. And and the person who shows up, they are married to their pain because at the end of the day, they like the stories that they tell because of the response that people give them when they tell those stories. True story, things like that happen for real. So if I'm married to my pain and I like the story that I tell because people, I find that people give me sympathy, people, flock to me when I tell my story, things of that nature, then I decide to come to, let's just say Pain to Purpose. We decided to come to the Pain to Purpose webinar. And I come to the Pain to Purpose webinar, and everything that you were teaching me in the Pain to Purpose webinar is telling me to divorce my pain. Hint, hint, hint. I'm just giving you a snapshot into what we're going to talk about. I'm teaching you and telling you how to divorce your pain. And then it's almost like you want to defend that because you like that version of who you are. So again, just kind of let that sit in. 30% lower success rates. So that means that let's change from that. So in order for me to move forward, there's this thing I have to exercise, which means that this is what I'm accustomed to. I want to get over here. I don't have any relevant experience in getting over here. But I believe I can get over here. That means that I have to exercise faith. And because of faith, faith is the thing that makes you, that allows you to move. I say it that way. Faith is the thing that allows you to move. Now, that's for the person who is trying to divorce this old identity. But what happens when you create a new identity to where faith becomes the foundation of your belief system? Therefore, any version of myself today, I am not married to, because I believe that I am only here in this particular space so that I can grow to the next space. I'll say it again. In my mind, and this is really how I think, I am here so that I can grow to the next space. Well, if that's the case, that means that faith now challenges me. So I do not ever get to the point of choosing complacency. I say it again. I do not ever get to the space of choosing complacency, regardless of how good complacency in this space feels. Let's change this and let's talk from a relationship standpoint. It would be disingenuous, and I believe this to be true. And if you agree with me, by all means, put it in the comment section. If you don't agree with me, tell me your differing perspective, because I would love to see this. I believe as a husband, it would be disingenuous to my wife if I chose complacency, because of what I know my responsibility to be as a husband and what my responsibility is to my family. So the minute that I choose complacency, I am now doing her harm slowly but surely in everybody that I know, love, and care about. Slowly but surely. It may not be an intentional direct harm, but over the course of time, you will see it deteriorate. So it's almost like atrophy. Like, for those of you, I used to be a big gym rat who know that. So to maintain or gain, right? Gain or maintain is what you do when you go to the gym. Well, to either gain or maintain, I had to go to the gym consistently or do some type of workout. That's the thing. However, all I have to do is not go, and atrophy sets in. Now, atrophy is, it's kind of like a version of extreme, but what I'm saying is that you will not maintain muscle mass, or you will not maintain conditioning, or whatever that looks like. All you have to do is stop doing it. Well, what do you think happens when you choose complacency in your life? Well, the potential growth that you may have once decided, well, it tends to deteriorate, it tends to go away. This also leads me to what we tend to call the law of diminishing returns. If there is a level of motivation that you have when you attend a thing, or I'm sorry, if you have a level of motivation that you have to attend a thing, then the longer you prolong doing it, the more likely you're not going to do it. I say that again because if you listen to what I just said, somebody just got something that they needed. The more time that I use, the more time that it takes me to make a decision to do the thing and do it, the more likely it is that I'm not going to do it. So I want you guys to kind of take that into account, just kind of process that, because I think it's important for you. And I love to see you put your comments in the comment section again, because again, these questions for you are important. If God introduced you to someone today, how would you how would he describe you versus how you typically introduce yourself? Now, I think this is important. And the question is, how would God describe you versus how you describe yourself? If God introduced you to someone today, how would he describe you versus how you typically introduce yourself? Interesting, but let's go a step further. What's the gap between God's vision and your self-talk? And I think that's something that we all can sit with, because you're constantly talking whether you realize it or not. There's a conversation that you're having with yourself about yourself as you see yourself in this particular space that you're living in. And sometimes it leads us to imposter syndrome. Sometimes it leads us to an overinflated ego, either or. But you have to analyze the conversation that you're having with yourself, and then try having a conversation with yourself that kind of lines up with the conversation that he has with you when you read his word. Okay. Now, if the Bible is not your prescribed document of growth and development, then whatever version that you look at, whether it's the Quran, whether it's, I don't know, some book on psychology, whatever that look. As you can see, I got books that range from everything, because I try not to limit myself when it comes down to reading. There are certain things I won't read. I'm just going to be honest with you. But then by that same token, I have a array of books that I do read, because I think all of them challenge me in what I think and how I think. So I think moving forward, you have to validate. There has to be a way of measurement. And I think that's really what science and math is all about. Science is all about proving discovery and proofing. And I think math is all about validating, right? And I think that's important. And it's not limited to that. So for you math and science majors out there, don't come for me, right? But that's just how I see it in my mind. And so there has to be a transformation that is backed by science, which goes to the notion of your brain was built to change. And I don't think a lot of times we think into that. And in essence, that change is described as this thing we call neuroplasticity. Now, neuroplasticity, in a very simplistic manner, simply means that your brain is always rewiring, right? Identity-based habits create change 40% faster than outcome-based goals. If you sit with that for a second, you can change the way that you execute and pursue goal accomplishment. Because generally the norm is set a goal, right? Well, let me say it the right way. The norm is to set goals, set milestones, set benchmarks, and then you work to achieve those. And if I'm doing those things, watch this, pay close attention because I think this is key. If I am trying to achieve this year goal with, if I'm trying to achieve 2026 goals with 2020 mindset, then it's a high probability that I will not be able to achieve 2026 goals. However, if I seek to change the habits from 2020 to 2026 so that my new 2026 habits can accomplish my 2026 goals, then I find accomplishing 2026 goals will be easy. That's where people like me come in at. It's all about understanding the habits that prevent me from achieving the goal that I actually have for myself, right? But going back to the 2020 goal, the 2020 goal I'm sorry, the 2020 habits in efforts to achieve 2026 goals. If I attempt to operate under that, notion, I'm trying to achieve goals in 2026 using 2020 habits. If I attempt to operate under that notion, them and do not accomplish the goal based upon how I desire to accomplish that goal, then I might get into the space where I experience some type of cognitive dissonance. Now, cognitive dissonance, I think, is a very interesting concept. And I don't care who you are, I think everybody's experienced this. It is a psychological discomfort that motivates change. Well, let me back up. Cognitive dissonance creates psychological discomfort that motivates change. The key is learning to lean into the discomfort rather than avoid it. Now let's back up and identify what cognitive dissonance is. It is the distance, the difference between a behavior and I'm sorry, between a belief and a behavior, right? It's not just belief and behavior, it's also belief and belief. So let me say it like this. If I am a doctor, and I say it in that specifically a doctor who does studies on breathing and capacity and things of that nature, but yet I smoke cigarettes. Well, I have a potential to experience cognitive dissonance because the cognitive dissonance is the tension that is experienced between the belief and the behavior. That's the best way to say it. So the tension that I experience in between belief and behavior, but it's not just something like that in professional realm. It could be, I don't know, I had a get together, and let's just say, I had a couple of friends over and, one friend was drinking a little bit and got a little bit too much to drink. And I knew that he didn't have enough. I knew that he had too much to drink. And I just asked him, I said, "Hey man, you good to drive?" You know what I'm saying? And then he said, yeah, I'm good. I'll be all right. And then he leaves and get in a car accident. So the tension that I now feeling responsible for him getting into that car accident, because now I'm thinking like, yo, I could have done something. I could have prevented him from leaving. I could have told him he could have spent the night so now there's dissonance. I knew better, but I still allowed him to do it. So when we look at it, that can put us in a position to where we do not want to try a thing. 2026, 2020 habits, 2026 goals, right? It could put me in a position to where I do not want to try the goal again. But the key here, like you've seen already, the key here is to lean in to the discomfort. Look at the discomfort, analyze the discomfort. Why does the discomfort exist? Then change the habit that created the discomfort. Don't focus more on the feeling. Change the habit that created the discomfort, right? Because now we get to the point of recognizing that if the habit was different, the outcome would have been different. So the habit is the thing to change, not necessarily feeling a particular way about the outcome. So that it takes about 66 days. I know some people like to believe it takes 21 days to change a habit. It takes 21 days to become of the new. It takes 21 days to become aware of the new habit that can actually change. From day 1 to day 21, you're excited. That's motivation. At day 21, you become aware that this thing has a high probability to become a habit. Do not stop at day 21. Keep going beyond. In fact, your goal is not to go to 66 and stop. Your goal is turn it into a lifestyle change. That's really what you're looking to do. So I think all those things are important. I greatly appreciate um, all of the comments that you guys are leaving, because again, they really add value to the show overall. Um, I kind of want to share this one as well because you have these things I tend to call identity based beliefs, right? Which I really all of them are, if we really honest with ourselves. But then there's some what beliefs or habits really. But then there's some habits that equate to a particular thing, right? And you either believe you can or you believe you can, and then you create a habit based upon that. And so I think when we consider this, right, some of the identity based habits that we've implemented that has created lasting changes or that can create lasting change in our life, one of the things that I've kind of married myself to is waking up early in the morning. I wake up at 4:30. I make every effort to wake up at 4:30 every morning. I'm not going to tell you that I wake up exactly at 4:30. I may wake up a little later, maybe 5 o'clock, sometimes even earlier, sometimes 3 o'clock. But I do that because that's time that I spend investing in myself, right? At the level in which I have already invested. Once I've exhausted those things, dissect them in and out, so forth and so on, I become intentional about investing in myself physically some more because at this level, I need to climb here. So you should never get to the point to where you choose complacency and say, okay, well, this is enough. Sure, it's enough for what? Right? Need something that's going to give you permission to go higher and higher and higher. So that's the thing. Like look at the habits, the identity based habits that you've created, and then identify which one you can implement to change your life. And then you push through the initial discomfort that you experience between the old identity based habit and the new habit that you're trying to create. Okay. So that said, I'm going to throw this out. If you focus on becoming the type of person who achieves your goals rather than just achieving the goal themselves, I wonder how would that change your daily actions today? Right. And I ask it again, if you focus on becoming the type of person who achieves your goals rather than just achieving the goal themselves, how would that change your daily actions today? So I greatly appreciate you guys for even taking the chance or taking the opportunity to do that. And I'll leave that up. I'll leave that scrolling for a second, just in case you're trying to capture that, because I think it's important. Focus on changing the habits surrounding the goal as opposed to just trying to use the same habits to accomplish the goal. And again, I would love to talk with somebody or talk with you about your habits and some of the habits. Because let's be honest, some of the habits we can't see, right? We all have blind spots. Those blind spots lead to doing things, and we don't necessarily know that we're doing those things. Okay, so I think that's important. Now, I kind of want to highlight a biblical blueprint for identity transformation. I believe some of you are aware of this, and some of you are not, and that's fine, either or. And just because we are aware of things don't necessarily mean that we know how to implement the thing that we're aware of. So that's a thing that we have to become accustomed to, right? Just because we know of a thing or we are aware of a thing does not mean that we know how to implement the thing. So I think it's important that when we look at these things, we start to become open to such a degree that we learning is the key, right? We have to embrace the idea of lifelong learning. So it's simple. Scripture gives us a three-step process. Put off the old, renew your mind, put on the new. I say it again. Put off the old, renew your mind, put on the new. Now it sounds simple. It really does. But it's a lot more difficult than what you can imagine. And for those of you who understand the level of difficulty that it actually presents, trust me, it goes a lot deeper than just that. So in the book of Ephesians, you'll see this where it says, put off your old self, be renewed in the spirit of your mind, and put on a new self, right? And again, I give it to you, Ephesians 4:22 through 24. The scripture tells that it's not, it doesn't say, right? It's optional. That's the piece that we miss a lot. We believe it's optional. We'll read it and move on like it didn't say anything, right? It is something that we're instructed to do, right? Put off the old, renew your mind, put on the new. This becomes a life cycle, a life-changing feat. It's a continual feat of growth. So now it means that I can't ever get to the point where I get tired of growth. I'm sorry. It's just that way. I believe this as well, and this is just me. A couple of things become important. There's this thing that you are destined to do. That's what you were created to do in your life. But in order to become the person that is able to do the thing that you are destined to do, I think it requires you to become the person that becomes intentional about growing into that person. If I ever get tired and decide that I don't want to do that, then I should not be surprised that if someone else is given that same task, and then, I may not necessarily continue. I'm not saying that this will happen, right? I think you guys can read between the lines when I say continue. I'm not saying that this will happen, but that's what I really do believe. I believe that everybody has a responsibility to fill the shoes of the person that they're supposed to be to do the thing that they were created to do. And if we do not do that, then what are we doing? What are we really doing? Right? What does success mean? Identifying the thing that I was created to do, becoming the person that can actually do that thing, and then serve the people that I was destined to serve the people serve the people. I'm sorry, let me say it again. Right? Identify the thing that I was created to do, become the person that can actually do the thing, and then serve the people that I was destined to serve while doing that thing that I was created to do. I think that is what success is all about. Earl Nightingale says it differently, but I like his version as well. He says, the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. Well, six in one hand, half a dozen the other. The progressive realization of a worthy idea. Realization is not conceptually; it is being able to be in the spaceization, right? The environment of this thing that I've seen through my real eyes. It does not mean that I physically seen it. I've seen it through my eyes because we walk by faith and not by sight. So now the progressive realization, right? Progressively moving in the space that I've seen through faith, right? Of the worthy idea. Now that idea becomes more clear in my eyes. So, I rambled on about that. I appreciate you guys listening to me ramble. But I hope that actually makes sense because when you think about it, faith-based transformation programs have 25% higher long-term success rates than secular ones because it's rooted in something more deep and more profound, something that is backed by someone bigger than me, the Most High, right? So when we do okay, I'll say it like this. If you want to have success, watch this. If you want to have success, stop chasing self-centered dreams. Chase the dream that he gave you in the vision that he's going to give you. Because if I do what he is blessing, what I'm doing is going to be blessed. So that's what I have to, I don't know. It's just, to me, that just makes sense, right? There's things that I want to do, sure. But if I do the things that I quote unquote want to do, not saying that they're bad, right? But maybe I can do those things en route, or maybe I can do those things when, whatever that looks like. You have to figure that out for yourself. That's what I really and truly do believe. But here's what I cannot do. I cannot be in a space to where I am existing at the lower end of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? I am in, physiological needs and security needs, but yet I'm over here trying to live my best life. And trust me when I tell you, physiological needs and security needs it really has very little to do with your socioeconomic status than you even realize. Most people think it's all about socioeconomic status. It is not. It really isn't. I know a lot of people who make a lot of money and they're still in security needs. They're still in physiological needs. Why? Because from a psychological standpoint, from a mindset standpoint, they're still blaming, shaming, naming all of those things. But I also know people who don't make as much money as these people over here, and they are content with life. Not complacent, content. They've learned to be abased and abound. So I think in the space of all of it, it's not about the thing that the world says is important, but it's about the thing to where we're supposed to progressively realize something bigger than ourselves. I believe that you can have the best of both worlds. I believe that you can be in the socioeconomic bracket that you really want to be in and be a base and a bound at the same time. So how do I become the person that can actually realize that though? I think that's the key. Well, stop blaming everybody for your current situation. That's important as well. Okay. Um, Here's what I have for you. What's one old self behavior or mindset you need to put off? And what would the new self version of you do instead? Be specific, please. Again, no force. If you feel compelled to put it in the comments, I welcome that, because again, that just adds value to the show. It adds value to the environment, and it adds value to everybody who's here. People who are actively in the comment section and people who are, listening. Neither is wrong, right? So we're not going to judge anybody. We appreciate everybody for being here. Okay. So now, after considering all those things, right? Because self consistency, right? Those are the people who generally say, I know who I am. Okay, sure. Um, Now I have to get to the point of living the new creation, right? Because if I do what you're typing, what you're putting in the comment section right now, if I do that, if we do the things that we talked about previously, what you will find is that the new creation is out here, right? And you are moving in the direction of the new creation. So it's like I move from here. I got to put my hands above I move from here to here. That's part of the new creation. This is a new being. I move from here to here. That's part of the new being. Here to here is part of the new being. So it's consistent. It never ends, right? Um, and I think when we look at it, it requires me to make what I tend to call micro adjustments. So now when I look at my behavior, that's the evidence that I need to make the necessary changes that I need to make to move the needle positively in my favor. So that requires me to continue to tweak just a little. It's like I would talk like guided munitions. I say it that way. The way guided munitions work, most of them have a GPS on it, right? And everybody knows what a GPS does today. You have it on your phone, you have it in your car, whatever that looks like. The difference between you in the car and the munition having a GPS on it, and you'll see it in the technology to where people use these robot delivery services, they work by GPS. So now when the GPS in your car says turn here, well, the GPS on the munition, it turns it automatically. So certain things, stabilize, shift, whatever, so that that munition can maneuver in the direction to get to the target. But that's what you're going to do as well. So those little changes, altering things of that nature, we call those micro adjustments. And you make the micro adjustments in your life in order to become the person that you're trying to become. And I think that's how we get to lasting change. Some of us believe that we're just going to just willpower our way there, right? No, it doesn't work that way. I'm sorry. If I believe a thing, that means I do the thing that's consistent with what I believe. So part of me increasing the magnitude of the thing that I'm believing, part of that is also looking at the things that I'm doing. Because if I'm not doing it, then it's not faith. I say it again. If I am believing a particular thing that's over here and my behavior is over here, I'm sorry, I didn't put it back here, is over here, that's not faith. Faith is I believe this and my deeds are over here with it. That's faith. So when when my behavior is not congruent with my belief, it doesn't work that way. So again, I just want to say that because I think when we look at all different types of community, it doesn't matter whether we're talking faith-based, whatever, you have to do the thing that's consistent with what you believe. Do you have to be perfect at doing it? No. There's no such thing as perfection, man. That's boring. I mean, Phil, there is perfection, but you've never met them. You believe in them. That's what this is all about. So that said, lasting change comes from micro actions, environment design, and community accountability, not just willpower. Listen, that's what mindset shift is all about, right? It is a community of accountability partners. It is extremely important that you have people in your corner that actually hold the space for what you really and truly do believe. Sometimes we find ourselves with, hanging out with people because they're fun, right? They're fun, goofy sometimes, and goofy sometimes is fun. We find ourselves hanging out with people who do not have the same beliefs that we do, and therefore, they will question the thing that we're doing, and they will question it in a very condescending manner. That's not good for you. You have to be around people who believe in the thing that you believe in and hold the space and believe in the fact that you can move from one space to another. It's like the old game Frogger. I might be dating myself, but from one lily pad to the other, the community is supposed to be the people that believe that you can get there. That's what the mindset academy is all about, right? People who actually believe in other people, right? Believe in their growth and development. So that's important. Um, James Clear again. You do not rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. Focus on creating identity reinforcing systems, not just outcomes. When you focus on identity reinforcing systems, what you will find is your outcome changed. And what you're looking to do is elevate your outcome to the actual outcome that you're looking to achieve, right? The outcome that you're achieving right now is evidence. It's enough evidence for you to understand, I need more. I need to do more. Okay. Um, I think now that brings into notion this thing called habit stacking. Well, what do I mean when I say that? Habit stacking is like where we, again, like I was saying, observe the evidence of my behavior, right? And then I adopt new habits based upon the information that I got from my behavior, and I tie them to the old ones. So it's not like this drastic change going from here to here. It's like a process going from here to here, here to here, here to here, eventually getting over here. Because now it makes those routines more routine, if that makes sense. So when you are changing habits, adopting habits based upon habit stacking, it's continuing the routine. I think a lot of times what ends up happening is that we try to go from here to over here, and then we break the chain of habit. Therefore, now when I'm trying to do this thing, I do not have habit in this thing, and now I got to go back to the 66 day in order to create a new habit. But when we habit stack, we just continue to do the thing and moving and moving and moving. And now it is just an adjustment of the habit that I've been previously doing, just doing it in a way that works best for me. And I think we look at, some systems, a practical system. I'll give you one of mine, right? One practical system of environment change that has helped me to live out the transform identity on a daily basis. I become intentional about talking about things, certain things, specific things in the morning. I don't do random run of the mill conversations in the morning. Trust me, if you know me, then you know that I am very intentional about the words that I speak. I am very intentional about what I talk about in the morning. I do not do just random conversations in the morning. I don't mean any harm by having that as a boundary for me, but I understand that boundary for me means me well. So as long as anyone else don't take offense to that, then they'll be fine. And if they do, we can talk about it. It probably won't be a long of a conversation, but we can talk about it. And so by virtue of that, looking at your current daily environment and routines, what's one change you can make today that will make it easier to be the person you're becoming? Just let that sink in. What's one change you can make today that will make it easier to become the person you're becoming? And then take action. Now, this platform serves as an accountability environment. So if you want to apply anything that we talked about, and you want to come back to another show and just kind of put that out there and share, we would be honored to just witness in your growth as it pertains to the thing that you're trying to change. Or let's just say you want to send an email. You can send an email to admin@totalmindsetshift.com. And again, it'll be something that we'll be honored to show on the show, because again, we want to celebrate you, because that's what we do here. We celebrate all successes, all wins. CAW, Kyle, right? Celebrate all wins. We love to celebrate your successes and things of that nature. So if you want to send us an email letting us know the success that you've had in implementing this, that would be great. And let's not end it there. Even if you're struggling trying to implement it and you need some help, reach out. That's what I do for a living. That's what we do. That's what this community is all about, right? When you have a dedicated accountability partner that's there to help you grow, move, and elevate, that's how it works. There's an old saying that I remember my mentor used to say all the time: if you want to go fast, go by yourself. If you want to go far, go with somebody else. Right. So take some people along with you. And so that's kind of like my goal. My goal is to go far. And it's not me going far, it's we going far. I want to see everybody succeed. I want to see everybody, capture a level of success that they may not have, believed that they could have at any given point in time. Here's the most important thing, though. A lot of these things you can do. I believe in you. But here's the thing. A lot of these things you don't necessarily have the awareness to do. And so when you have a person who can challenge your limiting belief, then what ends up happening is that you can not only get to the point of putting forth the effort to do those things, but that person holds the space for you to actually do it until you realize that you can. And that's what coaching is all about. So by all means, if you've never participated in coaching, I think you'll find great value in that. Again, send an email to admin@totalmindsetshift.com. And by all means, we'll love to connect with you and get you started on your very own coaching program so that you can literally blow the socks off of your own awareness and realize that you can achieve some things that you never imagined before. So that being said, listen, greatly appreciate you guys. I'm almost at the hour mark. Again, if you have not signed up for the Pain to Purpose webinar for April 11th, 2026, by all means, be in the room. Do not wait. Do not put it off, because like I just told you, when you look at these things, right, the law of, the law of diminishing returns, right, you might be excited about it today, but as time goes on, that excitement just wanes, and then you will not do it. Do not put it off. Get your ticket now, because I'm telling you, when all the seats are filled, that's it. The seats are filled. You want to be in the room, because in the room you get to ask questions. In the room, you get to experience the practical exercise. And who knows, I might even do another community group like I did after the webinar earlier this year. So that said, listen, greatly appreciate you guys. You guys are awesome. Have a great rest of your day. And listen, let the best version of yourself be a blessing to somebody else. And we'll see you again next week right here on Coaches.
A new day.